Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. We're going to talk about the DM bullet point problem, Cartographer. All right, apologies. If you don't know what the Dungeon Master bullet point problem is, you have a little bit of homework. You have to watch the video in the doobly-doo below. Apologies. That video will give you context to understand this video. Just do it so I don't have to repeat myself in every video. It's not fun for me. It's not fun for you. Thanks for your patience. All right, let's talk about the discipline of cartography. Let's talk about the role of cartographer. If you are a dungeon master, you have to master cartography, and you have to become a master cartographer. This is incredibly difficult. So what is cartography and being a cartographer? Well, if you're a cartographer, you can make and curate and maintain maps. Right? Maps are a huge part of Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, okay? In order to be a dungeon master, you need to master cartography, all right? Now, what are the different levels you can master it at? Well, it's incredible how many different levels you can master it at. You could become like Dyson Logos, who's one of the best map makers on the planet, dungeon map makers on the planet, and he draws incredibly accurate, incredibly innovative, incredibly exciting, incredibly visually appealing, incredibly wonderfully tactile maps. Just gorgeous maps. And I can tell you right now, it would be a life's work to master and to be able to create maps at the level of Dyson Logos. Or you could skip all that noise and you can master the software that will help you create maps. And get this, when you become a great map maker, and whether you do it physically and you draw lines on pieces of paper, or if you use software, you've got to master maps at two different levels. You've got to master maps for Dungeons & Dragons at the dungeon level, right? Where you can learn to create, just you're aware, the Fizzbands book just had literally, I think about 20 different maps in it, which were all maps of dragon hordes, beautifully crafted. You have to be able to create top-down views. You have to be able to create side views, right? And this can be done with software, or it can be done by hand. And there's an entire body of knowledge around either one of those at the dungeon level, or at the actual outdoors 5 miles per hex scale, which is. And you even need to be able to draw entire continents. It's incredible. It is so complicated, so challenging, so difficult, right? But let's say you're like, oh, there's no need for that, Scott. All you got to do is get the good maps that are out there. Good luck with that. That level of being a cartographer is incredibly difficult also, because you need to curate, right? Dyson Logos is one of the best map makers in the world. He creates incredible dungeon maps, and on his website, which you should absolutely go to, I think there's easily 700 free incredible maps that he's created over at least a decade. And he's incredibly skilled. And you will find people on the internet who say, oh, he's not that great. We really dislike his style, right? And people who draw maps in completely different styles. 2-Minute Tabletop is another great source for maps. But if you want to skip creation of maps together, you still aren't free of mastery. There's an incredible amount of difficulty in curation. Dyson Logos is incredible, and you will find, I'm not joking, 5-page long screes on why Dyson Logos should not be used. Which means that, curation is a distinctly different challenge, and you have to go out and find the best maps. And then once you find those maps, you're going to have to figure out how to print them, right? Do you print them on your own printer and tape them together, and that'll get you through one session? Or do you go to a professional printer and have them printed and then laminate them? And when you do that, do you put them in tubes in your house, or do you have a special table? Well, and it will take a special table to keep them flat. Or do you roll them up, which means it's going to be more difficult when you actually get to use them, right? So even curating maps is incredibly difficult, right? So even if you decide to just do map curation, that's its own thing. Then maintenance is massively difficult. How do you store these maps, right? Do you roll them? Do you lay them flat? And the maintenance of maps can be very challenging because they can be very expensive, right? And then once you pay the money, you can only really use them usually for 1 or 2 sessions, and then you need new maps, right? So should you be making your maps to be disposable? Should you be making them so that they're reusable? And then if you are taking the time to print them out, and they're gorgeous and they're large and they're awesome, well, it's kind of a waste for you to use them once and then do nothing with them. Aren't you going to need to, reach out to a network of other dungeon masters and maybe trade maps and things like that? And I have some good friends. I've used their maps, right? And it's really nice when you have a network of dungeon masters who are trading maps, because then each one of you can have 4 or 5 awesome ones and then trade off between sessions so that you have literally access to 30, 40, 50, 60 different maps. And during a campaign, your players may never even see the same map twice, right? So you're talking distribution, you're talking trading, you're talking whether you should be learning to do pen and ink, whether you should be doing your own software, whether you should be doing coding. Also, I haven't even mentioned how do you could sit down and have a super fun time making maps and just drawing some rivers and mountains and valleys, right? And half your players will be like, that's wonderful, you did such a great job. And then another player will go, that's okay. And then one of your players is going to be like, this sucks, all your water is flowing to the wrong spaces, the mountains are here, the river will flow that direction. And you will run into some people who really know about geography, right? So if you're really going to do a great job of being a cartographer, you actually need to know something about geology, geography, right? And again, that's going to mean that you're going to need to go get some books. You're going to need to do some study. You're going to need to actually do this body of knowledge. And so here we see another discipline, right? People like Dyson Logos have spent probably 20 years learning to draw maps. And he's only good at drawing one kind of map. He's only good at really drawing dungeon level maps, right? So here's this thing that people spend their entire lives doing. It's just a bullet point for us. That curation part. Some people make a living just curating things. Curation is not simple. In order to be a good curator, you have to have good taste. You have to know something about the material. Curation is distinct from creation, right? And this is another thing. When you venture down the life path that is being a dungeon master, you are committing yourself to mastering 10 things plus that others would spend simply a single lifetime even getting one right. And so it's just incredible. And so cartographer is another one of these disciplines and these roles that we are called to master. Now, I'm not afraid of it. I'm a pretty good cartographer. I've drawn my own maps. I keep very good care of my own maps. I trade with other dungeon masters temporarily and permanently. And I accept the challenge of being a good cartographer. It's one of the disciplines I'm still working on. But this is a very real problem, this idea of the dungeon master bullet point problem. When you are committed to being a good dungeon master, the commitment is so incredibly high, right? We are called to master multiple disciplines that others would spend an entire lifetime mastering. And so it makes us surge forward in intellect, in commitment, in dedication, in artistry, and it separates us from regular humans, right? We start to venture in a realm of commitment and dedication and knowledge and learning that other humans are just not called to. All that's my opinion. What do you think? Where do you put cartography in your disciplines? How do you manage your maps? What are I mentioned Dyson's logo. I mentioned 2 Minute Tabletop. What are some of your great resources that you use in mastery of cartography? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.